You'll last 3 days out there, Kael said, voice cold as winter stone. No pack, no name, nothing. Sabrina stared into the Alpha King's eyes, the man who'd just ripped their mate bond apart in front of hundreds, and felt something crack open inside her chest. Not her heart, something deeper, something that had been sleeping her whole damn life. Watch me, she whispered. Then she turned her back on the only world she'd ever known and walked into the wilderness alone. What happened next? Nobody saw coming, not even her. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop your city in the comments. Let's begin. The ceremony ground stank of smoke and expectation. Sabrina Valeth stood at the edge of the stone circle, her bare feet against cold granite that had witnessed 1,000 matings, 1,000 bonds forged under the blood moon's crimson gaze. She could feel every eye on her, 400 wolves, maybe more. All of them waiting to see what would happen when the overlooked Omega, the girl who'd spent 23 years being invisible, finally stepped into the light. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, anxious, hopeful, stupid. Don't, Sabrina whispered to herself, don't hope. But hope was a disease, wasn't it? It infected you when you were young and it never quite left, no matter how many times reality beat it down. The drums stopped. Silence fell like a blade. And then he walked into the circle. Kael Draven, Alpha King of the Northern Territories. 6'4" of muscle and authority wrapped in human skin, dark hair pulled back from a face that could have been carved from the same stone beneath their feet. He moved like violence contained, every step deliberate, every breath controlled. The kind of man who'd never questioned his place in the world because the world had spent generations confirming it for him. Sabrina's wolf lunged against her ribcage. Mate. The word wasn't hers. It came from somewhere older, deeper, a place where instinct lived without language. The bond snapped into place before she could stop it, a golden thread of connection that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, but did anyway. It wrapped around her spine and pulled. She gasped. Kael's eyes found hers across the circle, ice blue, unreadable. And then his expression changed. Just for a second, so fast she almost missed it. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, disgust, calculation. All of it gone in the space between heartbeats, replaced by that same controlled mask he always wore. But she'd seen it. The crowd began to murmur. The bond, someone whispered. It's real. An Omega? With the Alpha King? Elder Marcus stepped forward, his weathered face split by a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The moon has chosen, he announced, his voice carrying across the gathering. Come forward, both of you. Complete the... No. One word. Cold. Final. Kael's voice cut through the murmuring like a knife through flesh. The crowd went silent. Sabrina's heart stuttered in her chest. The bond pulled harder, trying to drag her toward him, trying to make her move, but her feet might as well have been rooted in the stone. Alpha King, Marcus said carefully. The bond is sacred. The moon... I don't care what the moon chose. Kael's gaze never left Sabrina's face. I reject this bond. The words hung in the air like smoke. Someone in the crowd made a sound, shock, maybe, or horror. Sabrina couldn't tell. The roaring in her ears drowned out everything else. You can't, Marcus said, his voice strained. The rejection ritual requires... I don't need a ritual. Kael took one step forward, then another, each footfall deliberate as a death sentence. I reject you, Sabrina Valeth. I reject this bond. I reject everything the moon thinks it decided for me. The bond writhed in Sabrina's chest like a living thing. Kael. The word came out broken. She hated how weak it sounded, hated the part of her that still wanted to reach for him even as he destroyed her in front of everyone she'd ever known. Please don't. You think you can stand beside me? His voice was quiet now. Conversational, almost. That made it worse. You think an Omega, the weakest wolf in her own pack, can be queen? Heat flooded Sabrina's face. I never said... You didn't have to say it. The bond said it for you. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell cedar and winter on his skin, close enough that the bond screamed at her to close the distance, to touch him, to make this right. But I need a mate who can rule, who can fight, who can produce strong heirs and hold this kingdom together when I'm not here to do it myself. Each word was a stone dropped into still water. And you, Sabrina. He looked her up and down, his expression flat. You're not that. Something inside her chest made a sound like glass breaking. The bond snapped. She felt it go, a violent wrenching tear that started at her sternum and radiated outward until every nerve in her body was screaming. Her knees buckled. She would have hit the ground if pride hadn't locked her joints at the last second. Don't fall. Don't you dare fall. Cale watched her struggle to stay upright. No emotion crossed his face. You're dismissed. The crowd erupted. Voices overlapped. Shock, excitement, judgment, pity. Sabrina heard all of it and none of it. The bond was still there, somehow, a phantom limb that hurt worse than the real thing ever had. That's not how this works, Marcus was saying, his voice sharp with panic. The rejection. If she doesn't accept it, the bond will... She'll accept it. Cale turned away, dismissing her like she was nothing, like she'd always been nothing. Won't you, Sabrina? 400 wolves waited for her answer. Sabrina opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. What was she supposed to say? I accept your rejection? The words tasted like poison on her tongue. But what choice did she have? She'd spent 23 years learning the rules of this world, learning her place, understanding that Omegas didn't get to want things, didn't get to demand things, didn't get to be anything except what their betters decided they could be. So she did what she'd always done. She swallowed the pain, straightened her spine, and nodded once. I accept. The bond shuddered, weakened, became something thin and fragile instead of golden and strong. Cale's shoulders relaxed, just slightly, like he'd expected her to fight, like he'd been braced for resistance and now he could finally breathe. Good, he said, and then he walked away. Just like that. The Alpha King turned his back on his rejected mate and strode out of the circle like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just shattered something sacred, like Sabrina Valeth was already forgotten. The crowd parted for him. Of course they did. They always did. Sabrina stood alone in the center of the stone circle, surrounded by hundreds of wolves who wouldn't meet her eyes, and felt something cold settle into her bones. Not grief, not heartbreak. Something else. Something older. Sabrina, her sister's voice soft with pity. Come on, let's get you. Don't touch me. The words came out harder than she meant them to. Maya flinched back, hurt flashing across her face. I'm just trying to help. I don't need help. Sabrina started walking, not toward her sister, not toward the pack house where she'd lived her whole life, toward the edge of the ceremony ground where the forest began and civilization ended. I don't need anything. Where are you going? Good question. Sabrina didn't have an answer. She just knew she couldn't stay here. Couldn't stand in this circle one more second. Couldn't breathe this air. Couldn't feel their eyes on her back like knives. Sabrina, stop! Maya grabbed her arm. You can't just leave. You don't have... What? Sabrina spun around. I don't have what? Permission? Maya's grip tightened. You don't have supplies, or a plan, or anywhere to go. Then I'll figure it out. You're an Omega. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. You won't last a week out there alone. There it was again. That word. Omega. Like it was a prison sentence. Like it defined everything she could ever be. Sabrina yanked her arm free. Watch me. She walked into the forest and didn't look back. The first night she almost died. Not from cold, though the temperature dropped fast once the sun went down, and her thin ceremonial dress did exactly nothing to keep her warm. Not from hunger, though her stomach cramped around emptiness and her head swam with dizziness. No, she almost died from herself. The bond, what was left of it, wouldn't shut up. It whispered in her chest like a living thing, pulling her back toward the territory, back toward Kyle, back toward the place she'd just escaped. Every step away from him felt like walking through broken glass. Her wolf whined and paced and begged her to turn around. Go back. Fix this. Make him want us. He doesn't want us, Sabrina said out loud, her voice rough in the darkness. He made that pretty fucking clear. But her wolf didn't listen. Wolves never did. They were all instinct and emotion, no logic to temper the fire. And right now her wolf was burning alive with rejection, with the need to complete what the moon had started, with a bone-deep certainty that everything would be fine if they just went back and tried harder. Sabrina's hand shook as she gathered fallen branches in the dark. She needed fire, needed light, needed something to focus on besides the screaming in her head. But her fingers were numb, and the branches were damp, and she'd never actually built a fire from scratch before because why would she? She'd lived in the pack house her whole life, surrounded by wolves who did everything for her, who never expected her to be strong or capable or anything except small. "Come on," she muttered, striking two rocks together the way she'd seen others do. "Come on, you piece of shit, just—" Nothing. No spark. No flame. Just the sound of stone on stone and her own ragged breathing. She tried again, and again, and again. Her hands bled. The cold sank deeper, and the bond kept pulling, pulling, pulling. Go back. No. He's our mate. He rejected us. We can fix it. There's nothing to fix. The words ripped out of her throat. He doesn't want us. He never wanted us. We're not strong enough, not pretty enough, not anything enough. Silence. Even her wolf went quiet. Sabrina sat back on her heels, branches scattered around her, blood on her palms, and felt something break open in her chest. Not the bond. Something deeper. She started laughing. It wasn't a happy sound, more like something tearing, something coming loose after being held too tight for too long. She laughed until tears ran down her face, until her ribs ached, until the forest seemed to echo with the sound of her unraveling. And then she stopped. Just stopped. Sat there in the cold and the dark with bleeding hands and no fire and no pack and no future. "Okay," she whispered to the night. "Okay, I get it now." The bond pulled. She ignored it. Instead, she closed her eyes and reached for something else. Something she'd felt earlier when Kael had first rejected her. That crack in her chest. That thing that had woken up when everything else was breaking down. It was still there. Deeper than the bond. Older than the pain. A warmth that didn't come from outside her body but from somewhere within it. A coal buried in ash, waiting. Sabrina pressed her bloody palm against her sternum and pulled. Heat bloomed behind her ribs. Her eyes snapped open. The branches in front of her burst into flame. Not normal fire. This burned white-hot and smokeless, crackling with something that felt alive, that felt aware. It shouldn't be possible. Omegas didn't have power like this. Nobody had power like this, except the fire died as quickly as it had started. Sabrina stared at her hands. They weren't bleeding anymore. The cuts had closed, skin knitting together like they'd never been there at all. What the hell? No answer. Just the night wind and the sound of her own heartbeat, too fast, too loud. She tried again, focused on that warmth in her chest, that strange coal heat that had nothing to do with her wolf and everything to do with something else. She didn't know what, didn't care. Right now, she just needed fire. The branches ignited. This time the flame was smaller, more controlled. It settled into the wood and burned steady, casting orange light across her makeshift camp. Sabrina sat back, hands shaking. "Okay," she said, again. "Okay." She didn't understand what had just happened, didn't understand how she'd healed herself, or made fire from nothing, or why that warmth in her chest felt less like her wolf and more like something other. But she was alive. Cold, hungry, alone, but alive. And for now, that was enough. 3 days became a week. A week became 2. Sabrina learned fast because she didn't have a choice. Learned which plants were safe to eat and which ones would make her vomit for hours. Learned how to move through the forest without making sound. How to find water that wouldn't make her sick. How to build shelter from pine branches and prayers. She lost weight, got harder, stopped flinching at every shadow. The bond faded to a dull ache. Her wolf stopped begging to go back. And that warmth in her chest, that other thing, got stronger. It happened in moments. Once, when a branch snapped under her foot and sent her tumbling down a ravine, she felt it surge through her body just before impact. She should have broken bones, should have split her skull open on the rocks below. Instead, she hit the ground and rolled to her feet, bruised but whole, that strange heat already knitting torn muscle back together. Another time, she woke to find a mountain lion standing over her makeshift shelter. Its eyes glowed in the darkness. Saliva dripped from its jaws. Sabrina didn't think. She reacted. The warmth exploded outward in a wave of force that sent the lion flying backward into a tree. It hit with a crack, scrambled to its feet, and ran. Sabrina sat up, breathing hard, staring at her hands. "What are you?" she whispered. But there was no one to answer. She was alone. Completely, utterly alone. And somehow, impossibly, she was still alive. On the 17th day, she encountered her first pack. Not Kael's. This was a border territory, wild and lawless, the kind of place where rogues gathered and violence was currency. She'd been tracking a deer through the underbrush when she caught their scent. 6 wolves, maybe 7, all of them upwind and careless. Sabrina froze. Her wolf went quiet. Every instinct screamed at her to run. She was alone, outnumbered. And Omegas didn't survive encounters with hostile packs, especially not rogue packs that didn't follow the old laws. But she was so hungry. The deer was right there, close enough that she could hear its heartbeat, and she hadn't eaten real meat in almost 3 weeks. "Run," her wolf urged. "Run now!" Sabrina gritted her teeth, stepped forward instead. The deer's head snapped up, too late. She moved faster than she'd ever moved before, faster than an Omega should be able to move, and brought the animal down with a combination of momentum and desperation. Its neck snapped clean, the sound echoed through the trees, and then she heard the laughter. 7 wolves stepped out of the shadows, all of them larger than her, stronger, meaner. The kind of wolves who'd left civilization behind because civilization had rules and they preferred chaos. Well. The one in front was a scarred brute with yellow eyes and a smile that made Sabrina's skin crawl. "Look what we found." She stood slowly, blood on her hands, the deer at her feet. "This is mine," she said. Her voice didn't shake. "Good." The scarred wolf laughed again. "That's cute, really, but see, this is our territory, which means everything in it belongs to us." He took a step closer, "including you." The other 6 spread out, forming a loose circle. Sabrina's heart hammered against her ribs. 7 against 1. She couldn't win this. Couldn't fight them all off. Couldn't outrun them. Couldn't... That warmth stirred in her chest. Not heat this time. Something else. Something that felt like recognition. "Last chance," Scarface said. "Submit now, and we'll make it quick." Sabrina met his eyes and smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who'd spent 3 weeks learning how to survive alone, who'd discovered something inside herself that didn't make sense, who'd stopped being afraid of dying because death was starting to look like the easy option. "No," she said. "Wrong answer." They attacked as one. Sabrina didn't think, didn't plan. Just let that thing inside her chest take over. Let it surge through her veins like liquid fire. Let it burn away every limitation she'd ever believed about herself. She moved. The first wolf never saw her coming. She caught him mid-leap, twisted, and used his own momentum to send him crashing into a tree. Bones cracked. He didn't get up. The second lunged for her throat. She dropped low, drove her fist into his gut with force that shouldn't have been possible, felt ribs give way beneath her knuckles. 2 down, 5 to go. They came at her from all sides, teeth and claws and snarling fury. One caught her shoulder, tore through skin and muscle. Another bit down on her leg. The pain was distant, unimportant. That warmth in her chest was singing now, drowning out everything else. It poured through her wounds, sealing them even as they were made, flooding her body with strength that had nothing to do with her wolf and everything to do with whatever the hell was waking up inside her. She fought like something possessed, like something other. Broke bones, tore flesh, moved with a speed and power that made them hesitate, made them afraid. And then Scarface was the only one left standing. He backed away slowly, eyes wide, blood on his muzzle. "What are you?" he whispered. Sabrina stood among the bodies of his pack, some dead, some unconscious, all of them broken, and felt that warmth settle back into her chest like a satisfied cat. "I don't know," she said honestly. Then she picked up her deer and walked away. Bichiek. Word spread faster than fire. Within days, the story had reached every territory within 100 miles. A lone wolf, female, walking through rogue lands like she owned them, fighting off entire packs, surviving things that should have killed her. Some said she was cursed, others said she was blessed. A few whispered that she wasn't a wolf at all, but something older, something that shouldn't exist. They called her the Unbound. Sabrina didn't know where the name came from, didn't care. She just kept moving, kept surviving, kept learning what this thing inside her could do. It wasn't her wolf, she knew that much. Her wolf was still there, quieter now, subdued, like it understood that something else had taken the driver's seat. This was different. This felt like power that had been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake up. And every day, it got stronger. She could heal from wounds that should have been fatal, move faster than physics should allow, hit harder than muscle alone could explain. Once she'd been caught in a rock slide, and the stones had bent around her like reality itself didn't want her dead. Another time, she'd stared down a pack of 12 hostile wolves, and they'd submitted. All of them. Dropped to their bellies and bared their throats without her saying a single word. Sabrina didn't understand it, but she was starting to accept it. This was who she was now. Not an omega, not weak, not invisible. Something else entirely. But 2 months after the rejection, she felt it. The bond. Still there. Faint as a whisper, thin as spider silk, but there. It shouldn't be. Kael had rejected her. She'd accepted. The bond should have died completely. But it hadn't. Instead, it lingered, a ghost of connection that pulsed in her chest whenever she thought about him, whenever she let her guard down, whenever she was alone with her thoughts. And lately, she'd started to feel something else through it. Him. Not thoughts, not words, just impressions, unease, frustration, confusion. Like he could feel her too. Like the bond wasn't as broken as either of them had thought. Sabrina sat on a cliff's edge, staring out at the forest that had become her home, and wondered what would happen if she went back. Not to beg, not to plead, just to show him what he'd rejected, to show them all. No, she said out loud. Going back was weakness. Going back meant she still cared what they thought, what he thought. And she didn't. She'd spent 2 months building herself into something new, something stronger. She wasn't about to throw that away for the satisfaction of proving a point to people who'd never see her as anything except what they wanted her to be. So she stayed in the wilderness, kept training, kept growing, kept becoming. But deep in her chest, that bond pulsed, waiting. The attack came on the 63rd day. Sabrina had been tracking a wounded elk when she caught the scent, wolves, at least 20, moving fast through the trees. Not rogues. These were organized, military, pack hunters. She climbed a tree and watched them pass below. They were looking for something, for someone. Can't be far, one of them was saying. Last report put her in this sector. You really think she's real? Another asked. Could just be rumors. The Alpha King doesn't send hunting parties based on rumors. Sabrina's blood went cold. Kael. He was looking for her. Why? The bond pulsed in her chest, stronger than it had been in weeks. Like it was trying to tell her something, like it was pleased that he was getting closer. She told it to shut up, waited until the hunting party passed, then climbed down and ran. Not away from them. She could have lost them easily in terrain she knew better than they did. No. She ran toward her camp to grab the few supplies she'd managed to gather, planning to disappear deeper into the wilderness where even Kael's best trackers wouldn't find her. But when she got there, someone was waiting. Not Kael. Someone worse. Elder Marcus stood in her camp, hands clasped behind his back, expression grave. Hello, Sabrina, he said quietly. She stopped 10 feet away, every muscle tensed to run. How did you find me? The bond. He tapped his chest. It's weak, but it's still there. And the Alpha King can feel you through it, even if he won't admit it. Marcus took a step forward. He's been troubled. Not my problem, isn't it? Another step. You're his mate, Sabrina. Rejected or not, the bond exists, and as long as it exists, it affects him, affects the kingdom. Then tell him to break it properly. He's tried. Marcus's expression turned grim. It won't break. Neither of you can sever it completely. Which means, he paused, which means the moon chose you for a reason. Sabrina laughed, sharp and bitter. The moon can go fuck itself. Careful. Why? She spread her arms wide. What's it gonna do? Make my life worse? I've been rejected by my mate, cast out of my pack, and spent 2 months eating roots and fighting rogues. I'm pretty sure the moon's already done its worst. Marcus studied her for a long moment. You look different, he said finally. I am different. Yes. His eyes narrowed. You are. Stronger, faster, more. He trailed off, searching for the word. More what? Dangerous. The word hung between them. Sabrina felt that warmth stir in her chest, felt it rise to the surface like a predator scenting prey. If you came here to take me back, she said softly, you're going to have a bad time. I came to deliver a message. Marcus pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat, from the Alpha King. He held it out. Sabrina didn't take it. Read it yourself, Marcus said, or don't. But either way, he wants an answer. He set the paper on a flat stone, turned, and walked away. Just like that. Sabrina waited until he was gone before approaching the note. It was written in Kael's handwriting, sharp, controlled, no wasted strokes. She unfolded it, read 3 words. Come back home. That's it. No apology, no explanation, just a command dressed up as an invitation. Sabrina crumpled the paper in her fist, and that's when she felt it. Through the bond. Him. Not just impressions this time, something stronger, like he deliberately opened the connection, like he was reaching for her. She felt his confusion, his frustration, his growing awareness that something was wrong, that the bond shouldn't still exist, that she shouldn't be alive, let alone thriving. And underneath it all, buried so deep he probably didn't even recognize it, fear. He was afraid of what she'd become. Sabrina smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then she closed her fist around that bond, that phantom thread that refused to die, and sent one feeling back through it. No. The connection snapped shut like a door slamming. She dropped the crumpled note into her campfire and watched it burn. Come back home, she muttered, like I ever had a home with you. But even as she said it, that warmth in her chest was growing, getting stronger, getting ready. Because deep down, beneath the anger and the pain and the survival instinct, Sabrina knew the truth. She would go back eventually. Not because he asked, not because the bond demanded it, but because she had something to prove, to him, to all of them, that the Omega they'd dismissed, the mate they'd rejected, the girl they'd thought would break, had become something they'd never expected, something unstoppable. And when she walked back into that territory, it wouldn't be as the broken girl who'd left. It would be as the storm they should have seen coming. Her. The thought died unfinished as a new scent hit her nostrils. Sharp, familiar, wrapped in cedar and winter and authority that made her wolf sit up and take notice, even though she'd spent 2 months teaching it not to. Kael. He wasn't with the hunting party. He was here. Now. Sabrina spun around, heart slamming against her ribs, and found him standing at the edge of her camp like he'd materialized from the shadows themselves. Still tall, still built like violence contained, still wearing that same expression of controlled neutrality that made her want to punch him in his perfect face. You came, he said. Not a question, a statement. Like he'd known she would, like she was predictable, like the last 2 months of surviving alone in the wilderness hadn't changed a goddamn thing about who she was or what she'd become. Sabrina felt that warmth in her chest spike hot and sharp. No, she said. You came to me. His jaw tightened. We need to talk. We really don't. Sabrina, that's all you've got? The words came out harder than she meant them to. 2 months of silence and you show up in my camp like you own it, like you own me, and the first thing out of your mouth is, we need to talk? Kael's eyes narrowed. You didn't respond to the message. I burned it. I noticed. He took a step forward. Just one, but it was enough to make every instinct in her body scream. Through the bond. Shit. She'd forgotten he could feel that. Good, Sabrina said, forcing her voice steady. Then you know where I stand. I know you're being stubborn. And I know you're being entitled. She crossed her arms. You don't get to reject me in front of 400 wolves and then summon me home like a dog 2 months later. That's not how this works. I'm not summoning you, I'm asking. Bullshit. The word came out flat. You don't ask, Kael. You command. You control. You decide what everyone around you gets to be, and then you punish them when they don't fit the mold. She took a step forward, matching his energy. Well, guess what? I don't fit your mold. I never did. And I sure as hell don't now. Something flickered across his face, too fast to name, gone before she could grab it. You're right, he said quietly. Sabrina blinked. Had she heard that correctly? What? You're right. Kael's voice was carefully controlled, each word measured. I rejected you because you didn't fit what I thought I needed, what the kingdom needed. He paused. I was wrong. The warmth in her chest went very still. Wrong about what? About you. His eyes met hers, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw something other than ice in them. You're not weak, Sabrina. You never were. I just couldn't see it. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. But she'd learned something in the last 2 months, something the wilderness had beaten into her bones. Words were cheap. Actions were what mattered, and Kael's actions had made it crystal clear what he thought of her. You saw exactly what you wanted to see, Sabrina said. An omega. Someone beneath you, someone disposable. No. Yes. She felt her hands curl into fists. You looked at me and decided I wasn't worth the trouble of a bond you didn't choose. You threw me away, Kael, in front of everyone. You humiliated me, and then you walked away like it meant nothing. It meant, and now you show up here with pretty words about being wrong? Her voice cracked, just slightly. She hated that he could still do this to her. Why? Because you can feel me through the bond? Because you know I didn't die like you expected? Kael's expression hardened. I never wanted you to die. You just didn't care if I lived. Silence. He didn't deny it, couldn't deny it. Sabrina felt something cold settle in her chest, pushing against that warmth, trying to smother it. Go home, Kael, she said quietly. Forget you found me. Forget the bond. Forget all of it. I can't. Sure you can. You're the Alpha King. You can do whatever the hell you want. The bond won't break. His voice was tight now, frustrated. I've tried. Marcus has tried. Every elder in the kingdom has tried. It should be gone by now, but it's not. And as long as it exists, it weakens you, Sabrina finished. That's what this is about, isn't it? Not me, not regret, just politics. That's not... How bad is it? She stepped closer, close enough to see the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion around his eyes. The weakness. How much has it cost you? Kael's jaw worked. 3 border skirmishes in the last month. 2 challenges to my authority from lesser alphas who think I'm compromised. And yesterday the Western Pack formally requested a vote of no confidence. Good. His head snapped up. Good? You're finally experiencing consequences. Sabrina smiled, sharp and mean. Welcome to the real world, Your Majesty. Turns out actions have repercussions. Who knew? This isn't a game, Sabrina. You think I don't know that? The warmth in her chest was building now, responding to her anger, feeding on it. You think I've spent the last 2 months playing? I've been surviving, Kael, learning how to fight, how to hunt, how to be something other than the weak Omega everyone decided I was. She met his eyes. Including you. I see that. His voice dropped lower. I see you, Sabrina. I see what you've become. And what's that? Dangerous. The word hung between them like smoke. Sabrina felt her wolf stir, not with fear, but with something else. Something that felt like recognition, like he'd finally said something true. You're afraid of me, she said slowly. I'm cautious. That's not what I feel through the bond. His expression shuddered. You're reading too much into, You're terrified. The realization hit her like lightning. That's why you're here. Not because you want to fix things. Not because you miss me. Because you can feel what's happening to me and it scares the shit out of you. Kael said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Sabrina laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Unbelievable. 2 months ago, I wasn't strong enough to stand beside you. Now I'm too strong and you don't know what to do with me. That's not What do you want, Kael? She cut him off, voice sharp as broken glass. Really, what do you actually want from me? He stared at her for a long moment, and then he said the one thing she wasn't prepared for. Come back. Complete the bond. Be my queen. The world tilted sideways. Sabrina's brain stuttered, trying to process words that didn't make sense, that couldn't be real. You… what? Complete the bond. Kale took another step forward, and this time she didn't move back. Couldn't move back. Properly. The way it should have been done from the start. Are you insane? I'm practical. His voice was calm. Too calm. The bond won't break. It's affecting both of us. Weakening me, changing you. The only way to stabilize it is to complete it. By mating. Yes. After you rejected me in front of the entire kingdom. Yes. Sabrina stared at him. You can't be serious. I'm always serious. He moved closer still, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body, smell cedar in winter, and something underneath that made her wolf whine with want. This is the logical solution. Logical. She repeated the word like it was foreign. You want to fix your political problem by completing a bond you spent 2 months trying to destroy. I want to fix a situation that's spiraling out of control. His eyes were intense now, pinning her in place. For both of us. I don't have a problem. Don't you? His hand came up, not touching her, but close enough that she felt the intention. You think I can't feel what's happening inside you? That power growing, changing you into something that shouldn't exist? You're losing control, Sabrina, piece by piece. And when you finally snap, I won't. Everyone snaps eventually. His voice was soft now, dangerous. The question is what you'll destroy when you do. That warmth in her chest surged, responding to the challenge in his words, to the implication that she was a bomb waiting to explode. Get your hand away from me, Sabrina said quietly. Kale's eyes narrowed. Or what? Or I'll show you exactly how much control I have. They stared at each other, neither moved. The air between them felt thick enough to cut, charged with tension that was part anger, part something else. Something that made her skin feel too tight and her wolf pace restlessly behind her ribs. The bond pulsed, hot, hungry, trying to pull them together even as they stood there locked in a battle of wills. Kael's hand dropped. This is bigger than your pride. This has nothing to do with pride. Sabrina's voice was steady, despite the chaos in her chest. This has to do with the fact that you don't get to unmake a decision just because it's inconvenient. You rejected me, Kael. You looked me in the eyes and told me I wasn't good enough, that I was weak, disposable, nothing. I was wrong. That doesn't fix it. The words came out louder than she meant them to. You can't just say, I was wrong, and expect everything to go back to normal. There is no normal. You broke something that night, and it's not the kind of thing you can glue back together with pretty apologies and political necessity. Then what do you want? Kael's composure cracked, just slightly. An apology, groveling, blood? Name it. I want you to leave me alone. That's not an option. Why? She stepped into his space now, close enough to feel his breath on her face. Because the bond won't break? Because your kingdom's falling apart? Because you need me to fix problems you created? Because you're mine. The words landed like a physical blow. Sabrina's breath caught. What did you just say? You heard me. Kael's eyes were blazing now, ice replaced by something molten. The bond chose us. The moon chose us. And whether I rejected it or not, whether you accept it or not, you're still mine. My mate. My responsibility. My property? Sabrina finished. Is that what you were going to say? No, liar. She pushed against his chest, not hard, just enough to make a point. That's exactly what you think. That's what you've always thought. That people belong to you. That you get to decide who they are and what they're worth and whether they deserve to exist in your orbit. That's not… You know what the worst part is? Her voice cracked again, and this time she didn't try to hide it. I would have been a good queen, not the one you wanted. I would never be that. But I would have tried. I would have stood beside you and learned and grown and done everything I could to be worthy of a bond I didn't choose but was willing to honor. Kael went very still. Past tense, he said quietly. What? You said would have been. Past tense. Sabrina felt something inside her chest twist. Yeah, I did. Meaning what? Meaning that girl died the night you rejected her. She held his gaze. I'm not her anymore, KL. I'm not soft or hopeful or willing to mold myself into whatever shape you need. I'm something else now, something you made by throwing me away. Sabrina, boom. And you know what's funny? A laugh bubbled up in her throat, sharp and jagged. You're here trying to convince me to complete the bond because you need me. Not want, need. Because your kingdom's crumbling and your authority's being challenged, and the only solution is to publicly claim the Omega you publicly rejected. His jaw tightened. It's not just about, how would that even work? She cut him off. You think you can just waltz me back into the pack house, announce we're completing the bond, and everyone will accept it? After what you did? After what they all watched you do? They'll accept it because I'm their alpha. God, you really don't get it. Sabrina shook her head. You humiliated me, KL. Broke a sacred bond in front of everyone who matters. You can't undo that with a command. You can't make them unsee it or unfeel it or believe that I'm suddenly worthy just because you changed your mind. Then I'll make them believe it. How? By forcing them? By threatening anyone who questions it? She stepped back, putting distance between them. That's not a kingdom. That's a dictatorship held together by fear. And eventually, fear breaks. Silence fell between them, heavy, oppressive. Kale's hands curled into fists at his sides. What do you want from me? Nothing. The word was quiet. Final. I want nothing from you, Kale Draven. No apologies, no explanations, no second chances. I want you to go back to your kingdom and leave me the hell alone. I can't do that. Why not? Because... He stopped, started again. Because the bond is killing me. The confession hit the air like a stone dropping into still water. Sabrina felt her breath stop. What? Every day it gets worse. His voice was rough now, stripped of the control he usually wielded like armor. The weakness, the instability. My wolf is tearing itself apart trying to reach you, trying to complete something that should never have been broken in the first place. He met her eyes. I'm dying, Sabrina, slowly. And if we don't fix this, if we don't complete the bond, I won't last another month. The warmth in her chest went cold. You're lying. I wish I was. Marcus said the bond was affecting you, not killing you. Marcus doesn't know everything. Kale's expression was bleak. I've been hiding it. From him. From everyone. Because the second they realize how weak I actually am, they'll tear you apart. Sabrina finished the thought, understanding clicking into place. The challenges, the border skirmishes, they're not testing your authority, they're testing your strength. And I'm failing. The admission seemed to cost him. Without the bond stabilized, I'm compromised, vulnerable. And in a world where power is everything, vulnerability is a death sentence. She knew that truth intimately, had lived it every day of her life before the rejection. So this isn't about wanting me back, it's about survival. It's about both. Kale's voice was quiet. I need you to survive. But I also... He trailed off. What? I also want you back. The words came out rough, reluctant. Not just because of the bond, because of you. Because in 2 months alone I've had time to realize what I threw away. Sabrina's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. And what was that? Someone real. He took a step closer. Everyone in my life wants something from me. Power, protection, status. They see the Alpha King and they either submit or they challenge, but none of them see me. You were the first person in years who looked at me like I was just... He struggled for the word. Human. Wolf, she corrected automatically. Same difference. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Gone too fast. The point is, you saw me, the real me, flaws and all. And you didn't want anything except for me to see you back. And you didn't. No. The word was heavy with regret. I didn't. I was so focused on what I thought I needed that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. Sabrina wanted to believe him, wanted it so badly her chest ached. But want and trust were different things, and trust had to be earned, especially after it had been shattered. Let's say I believe you, she said carefully. Let's say everything you're telling me is true, that the bond is killing you, that you actually regret the rejection, that you see me now. She paused. What happens after we complete the bond? What do you mean? I mean, do I just become your queen? Sit pretty in the pack house and produce airs and smile while everyone whispers about how the Alpha King had to crawl back to the Omega he rejected? Kael's expression darkened. No one would dare, but... They would absolutely dare, Sabrina cut him off. Maybe not to your face, but behind closed doors, in quiet conversations. They'll say I manipulated you, trapped you with a bond you couldn't break, that I'm not worthy of the title, that I'm weak, that I only have power because you're too compromised to find someone better. I won't let You can't stop it. She held his gaze. You can command a lot of things, Kael, but you can't command respect. And without respect, I'll spend the rest of my life being a queen in title only, a figurehead, a political necessity dressed up as a choice. His jaw worked. Then tell me what you want. What would make this work? Sabrina thought about it, really thought about it. Not the heat of the moment rejection, not the anger or the pain or the pride, but the actual reality of what he was proposing, going back, completing the bond, becoming queen to a kingdom that had watched her be rejected and cast out. It should be impossible, should be humiliating, should be everything she didn't want. But that warmth in her chest was whispering something else. Power recognizes power. She'd spent 2 months discovering strength she didn't know she had, learning to survive, to fight, to be something more than the Omega everyone had decided she was. What would happen if she took that strength and walked it straight into Kael's kingdom? What would happen if she showed them all exactly what they'd tried to throw away? I want control, she said finally. Kael blinked. What? If I come back, if I complete the bond, I want control. Sabrina's voice was steady now, clear. Not over you, not over the kingdom, but over myself, my choices, my power, my life. You'll have that as queen, will I? She raised an eyebrow. Or will I have to defer to you on every decision? Ask permission to leave the territory? Smile and nod while you make choices that affect both of us without consulting me? His expression turned guarded. The Alpha King makes decisions for... See, that's the problem. Sabrina stepped closer. You're still thinking like I'm going to be your subordinate. You're Omega Queen who'll submit and obey and make you look good in public. That's not... But I'm not that person anymore. The warmth in her chest surged, responding to her conviction. I'm not the girl you rejected. I'm something else, something stronger. And if you want me back, if you need me back, then you're going to have to accept that. Kael stared at her. She could see him processing, calculating, trying to figure out how to maintain control while giving her what she wanted. Equality, he said finally. You want equality. I want partnership, Sabrina corrected. Real partnership, the kind where we make decisions together, where my voice matters as much as yours, where I'm not just your mate, but you're equal in every way that counts. The kingdom won't. The kingdom will adapt, her voice was hard, or it'll fall apart. Either way, that's the deal. Take it or leave it. Silence stretched between them. Kael's eyes were unreadable, ice and calculation, and something else she couldn't name. And then he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator recognizing another predator. You've changed, he said softly. Yeah, I have. Good. He held out his hand. Then we have a deal. Sabrina looked at his hand, at the scars on his knuckles from a lifetime of fighting, at the steadiness in his fingers despite everything he'd just confessed. This was it. The moment where she either walked away forever or dove headfirst into something that would either save them both or destroy them completely. No middle ground, no safety net, just a choice. She thought about the last 2 months, the cold, the hunger, the fights, the moments where she'd almost died and something inside her had refused to let go. She thought about that warmth in her chest, growing stronger every day, pushing her toward something she didn't understand but could no longer deny. She thought about Kael standing in front of her, vulnerable in a way he'd never been before, offering her power he'd never given anyone. And she thought about revenge, not the hot, angry kind, the cold, calculated kind, the kind that came from walking back into a place that had thrown you out and proving absolutely, undeniably, that they'd made the biggest mistake of their lives. Sabrina took his hand. "Deal," she said. The bond exploded, not metaphorically, literally. Energy burst from their joined hands in a wave that sent them both staggering backward. Sabrina's chest felt like it was on fire, like something inside her was being torn open and remade, like every cell in her body was screaming in recognition of what had just been set in motion. The bond roared to life, no longer thin and fragile, but golden and strong, wrapping around her spine and digging in with claws that wouldn't let go. She felt him, not impressions, not emotions, everything. His shock, his relief, his fear and desire and determination all tangled together in a knot she couldn't unravel. And underneath it all, pain, so much pain. He hadn't been lying about the bond killing him. She could feel it now, feel how close he was to breaking, how much the rejection had cost him, even as he'd tried to hide it. "Jesus," she gasped, dropping to her knees. Cale was right there with her, breathing hard, eyes wide. "What?" he started. "That wasn't completion." Sabrina's voice was rough. "That was just agreement. The bond knows we're going to complete it, and it's—" She broke off, gasping as another wave of heat rolled through her. "It's trying to speed things up. We need to get back." Cale was already moving, pulling her to her feet. "Now, before—" A howl split the night. Then another, and another, the hunting party. They'd heard the bond surge, felt it through their connection to Kyle, and now they were coming. Sabrina's wolf surged forward, sensing danger, and that warmth in her chest responded, not with fear, but with something else. Challenge. "They're going to see me," she said. "Yes. They're going to know what we agreed to." "Yes." Kyle's hand tightened on hers. "Is that a problem?" Sabrina thought about it. Thought about walking back into Kyle's territory, not as the rejected Omega, but as his chosen queen. Thought about the looks on their faces, the shock, the disbelief, the fear. She smiled. "No," she said. "It's not a problem." The hunting party burst through the trees, 20 wolves in human form, all of them armed, all of them stopping dead when they saw Kyle and Sabrina standing together, hands joined, the bond blazing between them like visible light. The lead wolf, a scarred brute named Garrett, stared. "Alpha King, we felt it." "I know what you felt." Kael's voice was steady, commanding, back to the mask of control despite everything she could feel churning beneath it. "Stand down." "But she's—" Garrett's eyes flicked to Sabrina. "She's my mate," Kael finished. "My queen. And if anyone has a problem with that, no problem, Alpha King." Garrett dropped his gaze immediately, submitted. "We were just concerned for your safety. I'm fine." Kael's grip on Sabrina's hand didn't loosen. "Better than fine. We're going back to the main territory. All of you will escort us." "Yes, Alpha King." They fell into formation, 10 wolves ahead, 10 behind, creating a protective corridor for Kyle and Sabrina to walk through. And as they started moving, as Sabrina took her first steps back toward the world she'd left 2 months ago, she felt that warmth in her chest settle. Not calm, just ready for whatever came next. For the challenges and the whispers and the battles she knew were coming. For the moment when she'd have to prove, to everyone including herself, that she wasn't just strong enough to survive alone, but strong enough to rule beside the Alpha King who'd thrown her away and then crawled back when he realized what he'd lost. The bond pulsed with approval. And somewhere deep in the forest behind them, something else stirred, ancient and patient and waiting for the right moment to wake up. The words echoed in Sabrina's mind like a warning she should have heeded months ago. But the hunting party was already moving, and she was caught in the momentum of her own decision, walking through the forest surrounded by wolves who looked at her like she was a puzzle they couldn't solve. The journey back took 3 hours. 3 hours of silence broken only by footfalls and the occasional crack of branches underfoot. 3 hours of feeling Kyle's presence beside her, not touching, but close enough that the bond hummed with awareness. 3 hours of watching the terrain shift from wild forest to managed paths to the manicured grounds that marked the edge of his territory. Their territory now, she supposed. The thought sat wrong in her gut. As they crossed into packlands proper, wolves began to appear. First in ones and twos, then in larger groups, all of them stopping whatever they were doing to stare at the procession moving through their midst. At Sabrina, the rejected Omega who disappeared into the wilderness and was now walking beside their Alpha King like she belonged there. The whispers started immediately. Is that? It can't be. She's alive? What's she doing with him? The bond. Can you feel it? Sabrina kept her spine straight and her eyes forward, refusing to acknowledge the stares, the shock, the judgment rolling off them in waves. That warmth in her chest pulsed steadily, responding to the attention not with fear, but with something else. Recognition. They could feel her power now, could sense that she wasn't the same girl who'd left, and they didn't know what to do with that information. Good. Let them be uncertain. Let them wonder. The pack house loomed ahead, a massive stone structure that had stood for 3 generations, home to the Alpha King and his inner circle. Sabrina had been inside exactly twice before. Once for a pack meeting where she'd stood in the back and kept her mouth shut. Once for the mating ceremony that had ended with her exile. Now she was walking through the front entrance like she owned the place. Because technically, she did, or would, once the bond was completed. The Great Hall was packed. Apparently word had traveled fast because every wolf of importance was gathered in the cavernous space. Elders, advisors, lesser alphas from allied territories. All of them turning as one when Kael entered with Sabrina at his side. The silence was deafening. Elder Marcus stood near the throne, his weathered face carefully neutral. Beside him was Counselor Varen, a sleek woman with silver hair and eyes like chips of flint. And behind them, Sabrina's breath caught. Liana, Kael's former intended. The she-wolf everyone had expected him to choose before the bond had manifested with Sabrina. Tall, beautiful, powerful, everything an alpha queen should be. And she was staring at Sabrina like she wanted to rip her throat out. Alpha King. Marcus spoke first, his voice carrying across the hall. We felt the bond surge. We thought... He stopped, seeming to choose his words carefully. We weren't expecting you to return with her. Her name is Sabrina, Kael said coldly. And she's my mate. Show respect. A ripple went through the crowd. Marcus inclined his head slightly. Of course. My apologies. His eyes flicked to Sabrina. Welcome back. The words were polite. The tone was anything but. Sabrina felt that warmth in her chest spike, responding to the challenge in his voice, to the condescension dripping from every syllable. Elder Marcus, she said quietly. Everyone in the hall seemed to lean forward, waiting to see how she'd respond to the subtle insult. Waiting to see if she'd submit, if she'd defer, if she'd prove that she was still that same Omega they remembered. Sabrina smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It's good to be home, she said, putting just enough emphasis on the last word to make it a claim. A statement. A line in the sand. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Understanding. This wasn't going to be easy. I'm sure you're both tired from your journey, Counselor Varen said smoothly, stepping forward. Perhaps we should postpone any formal announcements until... There's nothing to postpone, Kael's voice cut through the hall like a blade. Sabrina and I have agreed to complete the bond. The ceremony will take place 3 days from now. The hall erupted. Voices overlapped. Shock, outrage, disbelief. Sabrina caught fragments of conversation, none of them kind. Can't be serious. Rejected her publicly. What about Liana? Omega as queen. Silence. Kael's voice didn't rise in volume, but the command in it was absolute. Every wolf in the hall shut up immediately, instinct overriding outrage. I am your Alpha King, Kael continued, his tone ice cold. And I have made my decision. Anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with me directly. He paused, letting the threat hang in the air. Now. No one moved. No one spoke. They wanted to. Sabrina could see it in their faces, could feel the rage and confusion and betrayal radiating from wolves who'd watched Kael reject her and were now being told to accept her as their queen. But fear was a stronger motivator than pride, and they were all afraid of him. Good, Kael said. Marcus, Varen, I want the ceremony prepared. Full traditional rites, every pack in the territory to witness. His hand found Sabrina's, fingers lacing through hers in a gesture that was both possessive and public. Make it clear that this is permanent. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he nodded. As you command, Alpha King. Council dismissed. Kale turned, already moving toward the private wing. Sabrina, come with me. She followed because the alternative was staying in a hall full of hostile wolves, and she wasn't quite ready for that fight yet. They walked in silence through corridors she barely remembered, past guards who pressed themselves against the walls to let them pass, until Kyle pushed open a heavy wooden door and led her into what was clearly his private quarters. The room was sparse, functional. A massive bed dominated one wall, a desk covered in maps and reports, another. Windows overlooked the territory, giving a clear view of the forest stretching to the horizon. Kale closed the door behind them, and the mask finally cracked. He leaned against the wood, eyes closed, breathing hard like he'd just run a marathon. That went well, Sabrina said dryly. A laugh escaped him, rough and humorless. They hate you. I noticed. They'll come around. Will they? She moved to the window, staring out at the territory that was supposed to become hers. Or will they just learn to hide it better? Kyle didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. The pack would never accept her willingly. Not after the rejection, not after she'd been cast out and had the audacity to come back stronger. She would spend the rest of her life fighting for respect she'd never fully earn, standing beside a mate who needed her for political survival more than actual want. The thought should have bothered her more than it did. There's something you should know, Kyle said finally. Sabrina turned to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't read. What? The bond completion ceremony. It's not just symbolic. He pushed away from the door, crossing to stand beside her at the window. It's a blood rite, ancient, binding in ways that go beyond the mate bond. Meaning once it's done, we're tied together completely. Not just emotionally, physically. Our lives become interconnected. If one of us dies, the other follows, Sabrina finished. She'd heard of blood rites. Every wolf had. They were rare, reserved for alpha pairings where absolute unity was required. You're serious about this? I have to be. Kale's voice was quiet. The kingdom is fracturing. Without a strong, united front, without a queen who can stand beside me as an equal, we won't survive the year. There it was again. Need, not want, politics, not emotion. Sabrina felt that warmth in her chest twist, responding to the truth in his words, even as part of her recoiled from it. And if I say no? Kyle met her eyes. Then we both die. Me from the bond breaking, you from whatever that power inside you is becoming. You don't know that, don't I? He moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. You think I can't feel it through the bond? That thing growing inside you, changing you, pushing you towards something you don't understand? It's consuming you, Sabrina, piece by piece, and without the blood right to stabilize it, it'll kill me, she whispered, or turn you into something that wishes it could die. The words hung between them like a death sentence. Sabrina turned back to the window, watching wolves move through the territory below, going about their lives, unaware that in 3 days, everything would change. I need to rest, she said finally. Of course. Kale moved toward the door, then paused. Sabrina? Yeah? Thank you for coming back, for agreeing to this. I know it's not what you wanted. No, she agreed. It's not. He nodded once and left, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Sabrina stood alone in the Alpha King's quarters and felt the weight of her decision settle onto her shoulders like iron. 3 days. 3 days until the blood right bound her to Kyle forever. 3 days until she became queen of a kingdom that hated her. 3 days until there was no going back. That warmth in her chest pulsed once, almost like reassurance. She ignored it. Instead, she stripped off her dirty clothes, found the attached bathroom, and stood under scalding water until her skin was pink and raw. 2 months of wilderness washed away down the drain, but the power stayed. It always stayed. The knock came at dawn. Sabrina jerked awake, hand already reaching for a weapon that wasn't there, instincts honed by months of survival kicking in before her brain caught up. Right. She wasn't in the forest anymore. She was in Kael's bed, wrapped in sheets that smelled like cedar in winter, safe behind stone walls and armed guards. The knock came again. "Come in," she called, sitting up and pulling the sheet around herself. The door opened to reveal a young woman in servant's clothes, eyes downcast, posture submissive. "My lady," she said quietly, "Elder Marcus requests your presence in the council chambers." Sabrina's wolf stirred, sensing something off. "Why?" "He didn't say, my lady, only that it was urgent." Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, but refusing would be seen as weakness, and she couldn't afford that. Not now, not when the entire pack was watching for any sign that she didn't belong. "Give me 5 minutes," Sabrina said. The servant nodded and retreated. Sabrina dressed quickly in clothes someone had left folded on a chair, simple but well made, appropriate for an alpha's mate. The fabric felt foreign after 2 months in rags, but she forced herself not to think about it. The council chambers were in the east wing, down a corridor lined with portraits of previous alpha kings. All of them looked the same, strong, proud, utterly certain of their place in the world. None of them were women. The thought struck her as she pushed open the heavy wooden doors and stepped inside. The council chambers were smaller than the Great Hall, but no less imposing. A circular table dominated the center, carved from a single massive oak. 12 chairs surrounded it, each one representing a seat of power within the kingdom. Only 3 were occupied. Elder Marcus sat at the head of the table, hands folded in front of him. Counselor Varen was to his right, her silver hair gleaming in the morning light streaming through tall windows. And to his left, Liana. Sabrina's steps faltered. The she-wolf, who should have been queen, was watching her with eyes like frozen lakes, expression perfectly controlled. "Sabrina," Marcus said, "thank you for coming." "Did I have a choice?" She kept her voice level, refusing to show uncertainty. "There's always a choice." Varen's smile was sharp. "Please, sit." The empty chair across from Marcus might as well have been a trap. Sabrina sat anyway. 3 against 1. No KL, no witnesses. Whatever this was, it wasn't friendly. "We wanted to speak with you privately," Marcus began, his tone carefully neutral. "Before the ceremony. To ensure we all understand the situation." "The situation seems pretty clear to me." Sabrina met his eyes. "KL and I are completing the bond. I'm becoming queen. What's to understand?" "The circumstances," Varen said smoothly. "You must admit they're unusual. 2 months ago, the Alpha King publicly rejected you, cast you out, made it very clear that you were not suitable to stand beside him. And now he's changed his mind." "Has he?" Liana spoke for the first time, her voice soft and deadly. "Or is he just desperate?" Sabrina's wolf snarled. She pushed it down. "What are you implying?" "I think you know." Liana leaned forward, elbows on the table. "The bond is killing him. Everyone can see it. He's weaker than he's been in years, losing challenges, struggling to maintain control, and suddenly, conveniently, he decides that the Omega he threw away is actually what he needed all along." "He made a mistake," Sabrina said. "He's correcting it. Or he's using you." Varen's voice was cold. "Completing the bond will stabilize him, restore his strength, solve all his political problems. And what do you get? A title. A position. A kingdom full of wolves who will never respect you." The words landed like physical blows. Because they were true. All of it was true. Sabrina's hands curled into fists under the table. "I know what I'm getting into. Do you?" Marcus's voice was gentle now, almost kind. That made it worse. "Because I don't think you understand what the blood right actually means. What it will cost you." Kael explained that your lives will be tied together. Marcus cut her off. "But did he explain the rest? That the blood right doesn't just bind you to him, it binds you to the kingdom itself. To every wolf in this territory. You'll feel their pain, their fear, their needs, and they'll feel yours." Sabrina's breath caught. "What?" "The Alpha Queen isn't just a title," Varen said. "It's a responsibility, a burden. You become the emotional center of the pack, the heart that keeps them stable. Every decision you make, every emotion you feel, it ripples outward." She paused. "And if you fail, if you break under that pressure, the entire kingdom breaks with you." He didn't tell me that, Sabrina whispered. Of course he didn't. Liana's smile was bitter. Because if you knew the truth, you might not agree. And he needs you to agree, doesn't he? Needs you to save him. The warmth in Sabrina's chest was burning now, responding to the betrayal in their words, to the realization that Kael had lied, or at least omitted critical information. Why are you telling me this? Her voice was rough. Because we care about the kingdom, Marcus said. And an unprepared queen is worse than no queen at all. We've seen it happen before. Seen alphas bind themselves to mates who couldn't handle the pressure, who collapsed under the weight of the blood right and took entire packs down with them. I'm not weak. We know. Varen's expression was unreadable. We've all felt what's growing inside you. That power, that otherness. It's impressive, frightening even. She paused. But power without control is just destruction waiting to happen. What do you want from me? Sabrina's voice was flat. Marcus and Varen exchanged glances. Liana was the one who answered. Walk away, she said simply. Before the ceremony. Before the blood rite binds you to something you can't escape. Let Kael find another solution to his political problems. Let the kingdom heal without being tied to an Omega who's more unstable than the Alpha King she's supposed to stabilize. And let you take my place? The words came out sharp, if necessary. Liana's expression didn't change. I was trained for this role, Sabrina, raised knowing what it would cost. I can handle the blood rite, the responsibility, the burden. Can you honestly say the same? Sabrina wanted to scream that yes, she could handle it, that she was strong enough, that they were all wrong. But the truth was, she didn't know. 2 months ago, she'd been a nobody Omega trying to survive. Now she was sitting across from the kingdom's inner circle being told that in 3 days she'd become responsible for every wolf in the territory, that their pain would be her pain, that if she broke, they would all break with her. And Kael hadn't told her any of it. I need to talk to him, Sabrina said, already standing. He's in the training grounds, Marcus said quietly. But Sabrina, think about what we've said. Really think about it. Because once the blood rite is complete, there's no going back. You'll be bound to this kingdom and its burdens for the rest of your life. Sabrina didn't respond, just turned and walked out, the warmth in her chest blazing like a wildfire, her mind racing with implications she should have seen coming. The training grounds were behind the pack house, a wide-open space where wolves sparred and honed their skills. She found Kael in the center ring, facing off against 3 opponents at once, his movements precise and controlled despite the weakness she could feel through the bond. He saw her coming and dismissed his sparring partners with a gesture. They cleared out immediately. Kael approached, sweat gleaming on his skin, eyes concerned. What's wrong? Did you know? The question came out harsh. Know what? About the blood rite. About what it actually means. Sabrina's hands were shaking. That I'll be bound to every wolf in this kingdom. That I'll feel their pain. That if I break, understanding dawned across his face, followed immediately by guilt. Who told you? He asked quietly. Marcus, Varen, Liana. She stepped closer, close enough to see the exhaustion around his eyes. Why didn't you tell me yourself? Because I knew you'd refuse. The admission came out flat. And I need you, Sabrina. The kingdom needs you. So you lied. I omitted. His voice was hard now. There's a difference. Not to me there isn't. The warmth in her chest was screaming now, burning through her veins like acid. You stood in my camp and talked about partnership, about equality, about how we'd make decisions together. And then you turned around and hid the single most important piece of information about what I was agreeing to. I didn't hide it. You manipulated me. The words tasted like poison. Just like everyone said you would. You're using me to solve your political problems, to stabilize yourself, to keep your throne. And you don't actually care what it costs me as long as I save you. Kael's expression turned to stone. That's not true. Isn't it? Sabrina's voice cracked. Tell me honestly, would you have told me about the blood rite's full implications if Marcus hadn't forced your hand? Silence. His silence was answer enough. I thought so. She turned away, unable to look at him anymore. They're right. You don't want a partner. You want a tool. Sabrina, don't. She held up a hand. Just don't. The bond pulsed between them, confused, hurt, desperate. She shoved it down hard enough that Kyle flinched. I need time, Sabrina said quietly, to think, to figure out if this is actually what I want or if I'm just making the same mistake I made 2 months ago, believing that you see me as anything other than a means to an end. You're more than that. Prove it. She finally turned to face him. Tell me one reason I should complete this bond that has nothing to do with politics or power or saving your kingdom. Kale opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, and said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. He needed her to survive, needed her to stabilize the kingdom, needed her to be the emotional anchor for thousands of wolves. But did he want her? Did he actually care about Sabrina Valeth as a person, or just about what she could do for him? The silence stretched. Sabrina felt something inside her chest crack. Not the bond, something deeper. The part of her that had been stupid enough to hope, again, that maybe this time would be different. That maybe Kael actually saw her as an equal instead of a tool. That's what I thought, she whispered. Then she walked away. Kael didn't follow. Of course he didn't. Following would mean admitting he'd been wrong, and Alpha Kings didn't admit weakness. Sabrina made it back to his quarters before the tears started. She hated herself for crying. Hated that she'd let herself believe in partnership and equality, and all the pretty words he'd used to convince her to come back. Hated that some stupid part of her still wanted to complete the bond, despite knowing it was a trap wrapped in necessity. The door burst open. Sabrina spun, expecting Kael. It wasn't Kael. Liana stood in the doorway, expression unreadable. Get out, Sabrina said roughly. No. Liana closed the door behind her. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen. Liana crossed the room in 3 strides, moving with the confidence of someone who'd spent her whole life in this pack house, who belonged here in ways Sabrina never would. I'm not your enemy. Could have fooled me. I'm trying to save you. Liana's voice was intense. From making the biggest mistake of your life. By taking my place? By taking a burden you're not ready for. Liana's expression softened, just slightly. I know what everyone thinks, that I'm bitter about Kael choosing you, that I want the throne for myself. And maybe there's some truth to that. But mostly She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. I've watched Kael my whole life, watched him sacrifice everything for this kingdom. His happiness, his freedom, his chance at a real mate bond built on something other than necessity. Why are you telling me this? Because he's going to destroy you. Liana's voice was quiet. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but he will. The blood right will bind you to a kingdom that hates you, to responsibilities you're not prepared for, to a mate who needs you more than he wants you. And eventually, maybe in a year, maybe in 10, it'll break you. And when it does, thousands of wolves will suffer because Kael was too desperate to choose someone strong enough to handle it. The words hit like physical blows. I'm strong enough, Sabrina said, but even she could hear how hollow it sounded. Are you? Liana moved closer. 2 months ago, you were an Omega no one noticed. Now you have power you don't understand, a bond that's killing your mate, and 3 days until you're tied to all of this forever. How is that strength? How is that choice? Then what would you have me do? Sabrina's voice broke. Walk away? Let Kael die? Let the kingdom fall? Let me handle it. Liana's expression was earnest now. I can stabilize him, complete a bond of my own, give the kingdom the queen it actually needs instead of the one Kael's desperation has forced on you. He doesn't want you. He doesn't want me yet. Liana's smile was sad. But he will. Once you're gone, once he's had time to grieve what could have been and accept what needs to be, the bond will fade, a new one can form, and you'll be free. Sabrina stared at her, at this she-wolf who should be her enemy, but was offering what sounded almost like friendship. Why do you care? Sabrina asked finally. What do you get out of this? A kingdom that survives. Liana's voice was simple. And maybe, just maybe, the satisfaction of knowing I helped someone escape before the trap closed. The warmth in Sabrina's chest pulsed, uncertain, confused, angry. Everything was wrong, and nothing made sense. And in 3 days she was supposed to bind herself forever to a mate who'd lied to her, a kingdom that hated her, and a responsibility she'd never asked for. "I need to think," Sabrina whispered. "You have 2 days," Liana said quietly. "After that, the ceremony begins, and choice becomes memory." She turned and left. Sabrina stood alone in Kael's quarters, surrounded by his scent, his territory, his life, and felt that crack in her chest widen into a chasm. What the hell was she supposed to do? The bond pulsed, weak, desperate, dying. And that warmth in her chest, that power that had kept her alive in the wilderness, that had made her strong when everything else tried to break her. It whispered something that sounded almost like, "Run." The word burned through Sabrina's mind like acid, primal and insistent. Every instinct she'd honed over 2 months of survival screamed at her to disappear before the trap closed completely, before the blood right bound her to a kingdom that hated her and a mate who needed her more than he'd ever wanted her. She stood at the window watching dawn bleed across the territory and felt the weight of the choice pressing down on her chest until breathing hurt. The bond pulsed weakly between her ribs, dying, taking Kael with it. "God damn it," she whispered to the empty room. Because that was the real trap, wasn't it? Not Kael's manipulation or the council's warnings, or even the blood right itself. The trap was her own conscience, her inability to walk away knowing thousands would suffer because she'd been too afraid to sacrifice herself. The door opened. Sabrina spun, hand reaching for a weapon that wasn't there, wilderness reflexes still sharp despite being back in civilization. Maya slipped inside, closing the door quietly. Her sister looked exhausted, dark circles carved under her eyes, tension pulling at her shoulders. "You're still here," Maya said. "Where else would I be? Gone. Running. Anywhere but waiting for a ceremony that's going to hollow you out and leave nothing but duty and pain." Maya crossed to stand beside her. "I've been reading the journals, the ones previous Alpha Queens left behind." Sabrina's stomach twisted. And they all say the same thing. The blood right takes everything, your joy, your freedom, your sense of self. One queen lasted 3 years before she walked into the forest and never came back. Another made it 7 before she went mad. The longest anyone survived with their mind intact was 15 years, and she wrote that every single day felt like dying slowly. "That won't happen to me." "Why? Because you're special?" Maya's voice was sharp. "You are special, Sabrina. What you've become is incredible. But the blood right doesn't care about special. It cares about one thing. Can you carry the weight of an entire kingdom's pain without breaking? And if you can't, then everyone breaks with me. I know." Sabrina turned away from the window. "Marcus already gave me that speech." "Then why are you still here?" "Because if I leave, Kael dies. The kingdom fractures. Civil war breaks out. Thousands suffer." She met her sister's eyes. "And I walk away knowing I could have stopped all of it and chose not to because I was scared. That's not cowardice, that's survival. It's the same thing when people die because of it." Maya studied her for a long moment. "You know there's another option." "What?" "Complete the bond. Save Kael. Stabilize the kingdom." Maya's voice dropped. "And then leave anyway. Build shields. Learn to wall off the pain. Live your own life somewhere remote where the bond can't reach you properly." The suggestion hung in the air like forbidden fruit. "Other queens have tried that," Sabrina said slowly. "The journals you read, how many of them mentioned running?" Maya's silence was answer enough. "They all tried," Sabrina continued, "and they all failed. Because the blood right doesn't just bind you to the pack, it makes you responsible for them. And responsibility isn't something you can run from. It follows you, eats at you, until you either come back or break completely. So what? You just accept it? Accept that in 10 years you'll be a hollow shell going through the motions because there's nothing left inside you except other people's pain? I accept that I'm not willing to let people die just to save myself. That's martyrdom, not strength. Maybe." Sabrina felt that warmth in her chest pulse. Or maybe it's finally choosing to be someone who matters. Someone who can protect instead of just survive. Before Maya could respond, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. The door opened without a knock. Kael stood in the doorway looking like death, Skin pale as paper, dark circles carved under his eyes, movements careful like everything hurt. The bond deterioration was accelerating. Out, he said to Maya. Excuse me? I said get out. Now. Alpha Command waited every word. Maya's spine stiffened, but she was beta. She couldn't resist that level of dominance. She shot Sabrina one last look, worried, angry, helpless, and left. Kale closed the door, locked it. The click felt ominous. We need to talk, he said. We've talked enough. No. He crossed the room, each step deliberate. We haven't. You've been listening to everyone poison you against me, but you haven't heard my side. Your side is that you lied. What else is there to hear? That I'm sorry. The words came out rough, raw. That I fucked up. That I should have told you everything about the blood right from the start, instead of being so terrified you'd refuse that I buried the truth and hoped you wouldn't find out until it was too late. Sabrina stared at him. You think sorry fixes it? No, but it's the truth. Kyle stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could see the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. I was wrong to lie, wrong to manipulate, wrong to think I could control this situation the way I control everything else in my life. And now? Now I'm asking, not commanding, not manipulating, asking you to complete the bond anyway, knowing what it costs, knowing I don't deserve it. His voice dropped. Because I need you, the kingdom needs you, and I'm too desperate to pretend otherwise. The honesty was almost worse than the lies, because at least lies she could be angry about. Honesty just made everything complicated. The blood right, Sabrina said quietly. Tell me exactly what happens. Every detail, no omissions. Kale nodded slowly. The ceremony binds us with blood, ancient magic that ties our lives together completely. When it's done, you'll feel every wolf in the territory, their pain, their fear, their needs, all of it flowing through you constantly. And I'm supposed to what? Just carry it? You channel it. Use that power growing inside you to absorb their pain, filter it, transform it into something bearable. He paused. But it never stops, Sabrina. Day or night, awake or asleep. You'll always feel them. Always be responsible for them. And if the weight gets too heavy, I break, they break with me. I know. She wrapped her arms around herself. What I don't know is how to survive that. I'll teach you. Every technique I know for shielding, for channeling, for building walls when the pressure gets too intense. Kale's voice was steady. We do this together. You're not alone in it. Until you get what you need from me and decide I'm expendable again. The words landed like a physical blow. Kale flinched. That's not going to happen. How do I know that? How do I trust you when you've already proven you'll sacrifice me the second it's convenient? You don't. His expression was bleak. You can't trust me. Not yet. I haven't earned it. All I can do is give you my word that I won't betray you again and hope that eventually, through actions, I prove it's true. Sabrina wanted to scream at him that words weren't enough, that she needed guarantees, insurance, something concrete that would stop him from destroying her the moment she became inconvenient. But there were no guarantees. There never were. I want conditions, she said finally. Name them. First, you teach me everything. No holding back because you're afraid I'll get strong enough to leave. I need to know how to survive this with or without you. Kale's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Agreed. Second, real partnership. Equal say in every decision that affects the kingdom. My voice matters as much as yours. Agreed. Third, she paused, met his eyes. If I break, if the blood right destroys me and I can't function anymore, you let me go. No guilt, no manipulation, no using the bond to keep me prisoner. You end it cleanly and find another solution. No. The word was immediate. I won't kill you. I'm not asking you to kill me. I'm asking you to release me from the bond if it becomes unbearable. Let me die on my own terms instead of forcing me to suffer because you need me alive. They stared at each other. Kale's expression was anguished, clearly hating every word she was saying. But he was also dying, and desperation made people agree to terrible things. If you break, he said finally, voice thick, I'll let you go. I swear it. The bond pulsed with the weight of the promise. binding him to his word in ways normal vows never could. Good, Sabrina said. When's the ceremony? Tonight. Sunset. Kael's voice was rough. The bond won't last longer than that. It's now or never. Tonight. Hours, not days. No time to prepare or build defenses or convince herself she was strong enough for this. Just hours. Then we better get started, Sabrina said. Topad. The training was brutal. Kael took her to a private clearing behind the pack house and spent the next 6 hours teaching her the basics of mental shielding. How to build walls. How to let emotions flow through instead of drowning in them. How to channel that warmth in her chest into something protective. It was like learning to breathe underwater while someone held your head down. Again, Kael said for what felt like the 1,000th time. Sabrina was on her hands and knees, gasping, sweat soaking through her clothes. Every muscle trembled with exhaustion. I can't. You can. His hand on her shoulder, steady despite his own weakness. You're fighting the emotions. Stop fighting. Let them flow. There's too many. There's always too many. That's the point. His voice was quiet, patient in a way she hadn't expected. The blood right gives you more than any person should carry, but you're not just a person anymore. You're Alpha Queen, and that means learning to hold impossible weight without collapsing. Sabrina wanted to tell him it was insane, that asking her to carry an entire kingdom's pain was asking her to destroy herself piece by piece until nothing remained. But she'd agreed to try. So she gritted her teeth, reached for that warmth in her chest, and opened herself to the phantom emotions Kael was projecting at her. Fear, anger, pain, desperation, all crashing into her system at once. This time she didn't fight. Let them pour through her like water. Let that warmth rise to meet them, absorb them, transform them into something bearable. The pressure eased, just slightly, just enough. There, Kael said. Hold it. Don't let go. Sabrina held it. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Her entire body was shaking with the effort, but she held it. And then the warmth flickered, and the emotions came flooding back, and she was drowning again, gasping, collapsing onto the grass. Better, Kael said. You held it almost twice as long that time. Doesn't feel better. It will, eventually. Your mind will adapt, learn to handle the load. He crouched beside her. The first few weeks are the hardest. After that, it becomes background noise. Still there, still heavy, but manageable. And if it doesn't become manageable? Kael's expression turned grim. Then we deal with that when it happens. They trained until the sun began its descent toward the horizon, until servants appeared at the edge of the clearing to collect Sabrina for ceremonial preparation, until there was no more time to practice or plan or pretend she was ready. Kael caught her arm as she turned to go. Sabrina. She looked back. His eyes were intense, desperate, carrying weight that had nothing to do with the dying bond. Thank you, he said quietly, for giving me another chance I don't deserve. Don't thank me yet. Her voice was flat. We might both regret this by morning. Maybe. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. But at least we'll regret it together. Bashikpuri. The ceremonial bath felt like preparation for execution. Servants stripped her and guided her into water so hot it burned, filled with herbs that smelled like earth and ash and something older. They scrubbed her skin raw, washed her hair with oils that made it gleam like copper, painted symbols on her arms and shoulders in dark ink that would fade after the ceremony. Traditional preparation for the blood rite. Ancient, inescapable. No one spoke to her directly. They moved around her like she was already something other than wolf, already transforming into the Alpha Queen she would become in a few short hours. Maya appeared when the servants finally left, sat on the edge of the tub in silence for a long moment before speaking. Last chance, she said quietly. I know. You don't have to do this. We could run, right now, be gone before anyone realized. And Kael would die. The kingdom would fracture, but you'd be alive, free. Maya's voice was tight. Is that really worse than what you're about to become? Sabrina sank deeper into the water, feeling the heat seep into her bones. Ask me again in 10 years, she said, if I'm still alive, still sane, still me. Then maybe I'll have an answer. And if you're not, then you'll know I made the wrong choice. She met her sister's eyes. But at least it was my choice. Not Kael's, not the kingdom's. Mine. Maya's expression crumpled. I'm going to lose you, aren't I? Not physically. But the person you are right now, she's not going to survive the blood rite. No, Sabrina agreed. She's not. But maybe the person I become will be stronger, better, worth the sacrifice. Or maybe she'll just be broken. That too. They sat in silence until it was time. The walk to the ceremony ground felt like walking to her own funeral. Sabrina moved through corridors packed with wolves from every territory in the kingdom. They lined the halls in silence, watching her pass with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility to something that might have been pity. All of them knowing what was about to happen, what it would cost. The ceremony ground was lit by hundreds of torches, casting dancing shadows across the stone circle where Kael had rejected her 2 months ago, where the bond had first manifested and then shattered, where her old life had ended. Coming back should have felt like closure. It felt like reopening a wound that had barely started to heal. The crowd numbered in the thousands. Every wolf of importance in the kingdom gathered to witness their alpha king bind himself to an omega who'd been cast out and had somehow survived to come back stronger. They parted as she approached, creating a pathway to the center of the circle. To Kael. He stood waiting, dressed in ceremonial robes that matched hers, dark fabric stitched with silver thread that caught the torchlight. His face was composed, but she could feel his tension through the bond, his relief that she'd actually shown up, his fear that she'd still change her mind. Elder Marcus stood beside him, ancient face grave. Sabrina took the final steps alone, crossed into the circle, stood face to face with the man who'd destroyed her and was now asking her to save him. You came, Kael said quietly. I gave my word. You could have broken it. I'm not you. The words came out sharper than she intended. Kael absorbed them without flinching. No, you're better. Before Sabrina could respond, Marcus raised his hands for silence. The crowd quieted instantly. We gather tonight to witness the blood rite, Marcus's voice carried across the ceremony ground. To bind Alpha and Queen in a bond that transcends flesh, transcends choice, transcends death itself. This is not a ceremony of love. This is a ceremony of duty, of sacrifice, of 2 wolves pledging to carry the weight of a kingdom on their shoulders until their last breath. The formal words washed over Sabrina. She barely heard them, too focused on breathing, on the warmth pulsing in her chest, on the absolute certainty that in a few minutes everything would change and there would be no going back, ever. Kael Draven, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, do you accept this bond freely and without reservation? I do. Kael's voice was steady. Do you swear to share your strength, your power, your very life with the one who stands beside you? I swear it. And will you honor her as your equal, your partner, your queen in all things until death claims you both? A pause. The briefest hesitation. Then, I swear it. Marcus turned to Sabrina. Sabrina Valeth, chosen mate of the Alpha King, do you accept this bond freely and without reservation? This was it. The moment. The choice that would define the rest of her life. Sabrina felt the weight of thousands of eyes on her back, felt Kael's desperation through the dying bond, felt that warmth in her chest pulse once, waiting for her answer. She could say no. Walk away. Let Kael die and the kingdom burn and save herself from a future of pain and sacrifice. Or she could say yes. Bind herself to responsibility she never asked for, become something more than she'd ever been. And maybe, just maybe, prove to everyone including herself that she was strong enough to carry impossible weight. I do, Sabrina said. Her voice rang clear across the ceremony ground. Final, irrevocable. Do you swear to share your strength, your power, your very life with the one who stands beside you? I swear it. And will you honor him as your equal, your partner, your king in all things until death claims you both? I swear it. Marcus produced the ceremonial blade, ancient silver that had witnessed 100 blood rites, maybe more, edges sharp enough to split reality. Blood calls to blood, he intoned. Life calls to life. By the old laws and the ancient ways, let the rite begin. He handed the blade to Kyle. Kyle took it, eyes never leaving Sabrina's face. "This is going to hurt," he said quietly, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "Everything hurts." Sabrina held out her hand, palm up. "Just do it." The blade cut across her palm in one smooth motion. Pain bloomed sharp and immediate. Blood welled up, dripping onto stone that had drunk from centuries of bonded pairs. Kale handed her the blade. Their eyes met. She saw exhaustion there, desperation, hope that she wouldn't use this opportunity to punish him. Sabrina took the blade, cut across his palm with the same smooth motion. His blood joined hers on the ancient stone. Marcus began to chant in the old language, words that predated the kingdom, predated civilization, predated everything except wolves and wilderness and bonds that tied them together. Kale pressed his bleeding palm to hers. The world exploded. Not metaphorically. Actually, physically detonated in a wave of sensation that sent Sabrina to her knees. The bond surged between them, no longer thin and dying, but massive and golden and alive, wrapping around her spine and digging in with claws that would never release. And then she felt them. Every single wolf. Their emotions crashed into her like a tsunami. Fear and hope and anger and pain and joy and desperation, hundreds of individual wolves all becoming part of her at once. Their feelings flooding through her system until she couldn't tell where she ended and they began. Sabrina screamed. Couldn't help it. The weight was crushing, impossible, more than any person could carry. "Don't fight it," Kael's voice urgent in her ear. "Let it flow through you." She tried. God, she tried. Let the emotions pour through instead of fighting them. Let that warmth in her chest rise to meet the flood. It wasn't enough. There were too many, too much, too... Power exploded from her core. Not warmth anymore. Fire. White-hot energy burst from her skin in waves, washing over the entire ceremony ground in a surge of raw power that made wolves cry out and scatter. Sabrina couldn't stop it. The fire was pouring out of her in response to the crushing weight of the blood rite, her body's desperate attempt to protect itself by destroying everything else. "Sabrina!" Kale's hands on her face, forcing her to focus. "Look at me! Look at me!" She met his eyes. Ice blue, steady despite the flames. "Channel it," he said. "The power. Don't let it destroy. Shape it. Control it. Use it to shield instead of burn." "I don't know how..." "Yes, you do." His forehead pressed to hers. "You've been doing it for 2 months, healing, fighting, surviving. This is the same, just bigger." Bigger was a catastrophic understatement, but Sabrina grabbed onto his words like a lifeline, reached for the fire pouring out of her and tried to shape it instead of just releasing it, tried to pull it back, contain it, transform it into protection instead of destruction. The fire flickered, started to respond. She pulled harder, dragging it back into her skin, into that warmth in her chest which expanded to contain it. And as the fire retreated, the crushing weight of emotions became bearable. Not easy, not comfortable, but survivable. The warmth, now burning like a star inside her chest, absorbed the pack's pain, filtered it, transformed it into something she could actually carry without breaking. Sabrina gasped as the pressure finally stabilized, looked up to find Kael watching her with an expression caught between awe and fear. "What?" she managed. "That fire." His voice was quiet, shaken. "That's not wolf magic, Sabrina. That's something else entirely." "No shit. I mean it. I've never seen anything like that. Never felt anything like that." He paused. "What are you?" "I don't know." And she didn't. Had no idea where the power came from or why her or what it meant for the future. Just knew it was hers now, bound to her through the blood rite, permanent. Marcus stepped forward, his weathered face pale in the torchlight. "The rite is complete," he said, voice shaking slightly. "The bond is sealed. Rise, Alpha Queen." The title landed like a weight. Alpha Queen. Not Sabrina anymore. Not just a wolf. Something more. Something terrifying. The crowd erupted in noise, some cheering, others shouting in shock, most just stunned into silence by what they'd witnessed. Sabrina ignored them all, too busy trying to process the reality of thousands of wolves now permanently tied to her soul, their emotions a constant background hum she'd carry for the rest of her life. Kael helped her to her feet. She was shaking. "I've got you," he said quietly. "You better." Her voice was rough. "Because I have no idea what I'm doing." Neither did I at first. His arm around her waist, supporting her weight. "We'll figure it out together." Together. The word should have been comforting. It felt like a chain. They turned to leave the ceremony ground. That's when the howl split the night. Not celebration. Warning. Sabrina's blood went cold. The sound carried from the perimeter, urgent, panicked, the kind of howl that meant one thing. "Attack," Kael said. More howls joined the first, coming from multiple directions, surrounding them. Before Sabrina could process what was happening, wolves burst through the tree line. Foreign wolves, dozens of them, maybe 100, all armed, all moving with coordinated precision toward the ceremony ground, toward Sabrina and Kael. "Western Pack," someone shouted. "They're hitting us during the ceremony." "When we're most vulnerable," Kael finished grimly. Garrett planned this. The crowd exploded into chaos. Wolves scattering, shifting, preparing to fight. Sabrina felt it all through the new bond. Their fear, their panic, their desperate need for leadership. The weight nearly drove her to her knees. "Get the queen to safety," Marcus was shouting. "No!" Sabrina's voice cut through the chaos. Everyone stopped, turned to stare. "The bond is complete," she said, voice steadier than she felt. "I'm Alpha Queen now, which means I don't hide while my wolves die protecting me." "You're not trained for combat," Marcus started. "I survived 2 months alone fighting off entire packs." Sabrina met his eyes. "I'm trained enough." She turned to Kael. He was staring at her with something that might have been pride breaking through the exhaustion. "Together?" he asked. "Together." A massive wolf stepped forward from the attacking force. Alpha, scarred, eyes like amber fire. He shifted to human form. Garrett, Western Pack Alpha, built like a tank and twice as mean. "Kael Draven," he called across the ceremony ground. "Your weakness ends tonight. You bound yourself to an Omega, made her queen, proved you're too compromised to lead. The Northern Territories deserve an Alpha who's actually strong." "Then they still deserve me," Kael called back. His voice was steady, despite the weakness Sabrina could feel through their bond. Garrett's smile was vicious. "We'll see about that." He shifted back. All 100 of his wolves shifted with him, a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm through sheer numbers and violence. Sabrina felt her own wolves preparing to fight, felt their terror, their certainty they were about to die. That fire in her chest pulsed once, and she understood. This was what the blood right was for. Not just carrying pain, using power to protect. She reached for that fire, that impossible power that shouldn't exist, and pulled it to the surface. It exploded outward in a wave of white-hot energy that washed over her wolves, flooding them with strength that came from their queen. Their fear vanished, replaced by certainty, by power, by the absolute knowledge that they could win this. They shifted as one and met the Western Pack head-on with a ferocity that made Garrett's eyes widen in shock. The battle erupted across the ceremony ground in a storm of claws and teeth and violence. And Sabrina stood in the center of it all, channeling power through the bond, keeping her wolves strong, discovering that being Alpha Queen meant becoming a weapon designed to protect at any cost. Kael fought beside her, moving with deadly precision despite his exhaustion. They moved like they'd been fighting together for years instead of minutes, like the bond had synchronized them on a level deeper than thought. The Western Pack was brutal, experienced, well-trained, but they hadn't counted on an Alpha Queen with power that defied every law of nature. Sabrina felt every injury her wolves took, every death, every moment of pain, and she channeled it back as fuel, transforming their suffering into strength, into healing, into the will to keep fighting. It was agony. It was exhilarating. It was everything the blood right had promised and threatened all at once. Garrett carved through her wolves like they were nothing, heading straight for Kael with murder in his eyes. "I'm going to enjoy killing you," he snarled. Kael met him head-on. They collided in a blur of violence that made the ground shake. Sabrina felt Kael's pain through the bond, felt him struggling, felt him losing ground against an opponent who was fresher, stronger, not dying from bond deterioration. She poured power into him, everything she had, everything the blood right gave her. Kael's eyes blazed gold. He moved faster, hit harder, became something more than he'd been. Because now he had his queen fighting beside him, and together they were unstoppable. Garrett realized his mistake too late. Kael's claws found his throat. One clean strike. The Western Pack Alpha went down, dead before he hit the ground. His wolves faltered, broke, ran. The battle was over. Sabrina collapsed, every ounce of strength drained, the bond screaming with pain from dozens of injured wolves. Kael caught her before she hit the ground. "I've got you," he said. "Did we win?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "We won." He was smiling, actually smiling. "You were incredible. I feel like I'm dying." "That's normal after your first battle as queen." He brushed hair from her face. "It gets easier." "Liar." "Yeah." His smile turned sad. "But it's a nice lie." Around them, wolves were shifting back to human form, tending wounds, counting their dead. Through the bond, Sabrina felt their relief, their awe, their growing acceptance of the queen who'd just saved their lives. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was a start. And as Kael carried her toward the pack house, toward safety and rest, and a future she couldn't predict, Sabrina felt that fire in her chest settle, ready for whatever came next. Because she was Alpha Queen now, and that meant the real fight was only just beginning. The healing took 3 days. 3 days of Sabrina moving through the pack house like a ghost, channeling power into wounded wolves until her hands shook and her vision blurred. 3 days of feeling every injury through the bond, every moment of pain, every wolf clinging to life by a thread that she had to strengthen with power she was still learning to control. Kael worked beside her the entire time. Not commanding, not directing, just there, steadying her when she swayed, catching her when exhaustion pulled her down, pouring his own strength into the bond when hers ran dry. They didn't talk about the battle, didn't talk about what came next, just focused on keeping their wolves alive. On the 3rd day, the last critical injury stabilized. Sabrina felt it through the bond, the shift from desperate clinging to actual recovery, felt the pack's collective relief wash through her system like a wave. She was in the medical wing when it happened, hands pressed to a young wolf's chest, channeling healing energy into broken ribs and punctured lungs. The wolf's breathing evened out. His eyes opened. "My queen," he whispered. The title still felt foreign, but Sabrina managed a tired smile. "Rest," she said. "You're going to be fine." She stood, swayed, and would have fallen if Kael hadn't been right there, his arm around her waist, supporting her weight. "That's the last of them," he said quietly. "They're all going to survive." "Good." Sabrina's voice was rough from exhaustion. "How many did we lose?" 14. The number was heavy, final. Could have been 50 if you hadn't channeled power the way you did. 14 wolves dead because Garrett had chosen to attack during the blood rite ceremony. 14 families grieving, 14 lives ended because she'd agreed to become queen, and someone had decided that made her a target. The weight of it pressed down on her chest. "We need to hold a memorial," Sabrina said. Kael nodded. "Tomorrow. Once you've rested." "I'm fine." "You're swaying on your feet, and you haven't slept in 3 days." His voice was gentle. "You're not fine, come on." He guided her through corridors that had started to feel familiar, past wolves who stopped and bowed as she passed. Not mocking, not hostile, actually respectful in a way that made something in her chest tighten. They'd seen what she could do, seen her save their lives, and it had changed something fundamental about how they looked at her. Kael's quarters, their quarters now, she supposed, felt like sanctuary. He guided her to the bed, helped her sit when her legs gave out. "Sleep," he said. "Can't." Sabrina's voice was barely a whisper. "Every time I close my eyes, I feel them. The ones who died. Their last moments through the bond." "I know." Kael sat beside her. "It doesn't get easier. You just learn to carry it." "How?" "By remembering that you saved more than you lost. That 14 deaths is tragic, but 50 would have been catastrophic." He paused. "And by accepting that being Alpha Queen means making impossible choices and living with the consequences." Sabrina closed her eyes, felt the bond humming with thousands of wolves now tied to her soul. Some sleeping, some working, some grieving, all of them depending on her to hold it together. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. You already are doing it. Kael's hand found hers. You've been doing it for 3 days straight without breaking. That's more than most queens manage their first week. The fire helped. That power, whatever it is, it made the difference. It did. His voice was quiet, thoughtful. We need to figure out what it is, where it came from, why you have it. Later, Sabrina was so tired her bones ached. Right now I just need to not feel anything for a few hours. I can help with that. She opened her eyes. How? Shielding. I'll build a barrier around your mind, block out the bond temporarily so you can actually rest. Kael met her gaze. It's not permanent, and you'll feel everything again when you wake up. But it'll give you a few hours of peace. The offer was tempting, too tempting. What's the cost? Cost? There's always a cost. Sabrina's voice was flat. What happens if I let you into my head to build shields? What do you get access to? Kael's expression turned pained. You still don't trust me. Would you, if our positions were reversed? He was quiet for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. No, he admitted. I wouldn't, and I don't blame you for being cautious. He stood, moving toward the door. Get some rest however you can. I'll be in the study if you need me. Kael. He stopped, hand on the doorknob. Stay, Sabrina said. Please, I don't... She stopped, started again. I don't want to be alone right now. Something in his expression softened. He came back, sat beside her on the bed, close but not touching. I'm here, he said simply. Sabrina lay back, staring at the ceiling, feeling the bond pulse with the rhythm of thousands of heartbeats that weren't hers. Tell me about the first time, she said. First time what? First time you felt wolves die through the bond. How you survived it. Kael was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was 17, brand new alpha, still learning what the bond meant. We were attacked by a rogue pack, smaller than Garrett's force, but just as vicious. I felt 6 wolves die that night, felt their fear, their pain, their last thoughts as they slipped away. What did you do? Threw up, cried, nearly broke completely. His voice was rough with memory. My father found me afterward, told me that feeling their deaths was the price of leadership, that if I couldn't handle it, I should step down and let someone stronger take over. That's brutal. That was him. Kael's hands curled into fists. He believed weakness had no place in an alpha, that emotion was liability, that the only thing that mattered was strength and control and never showing vulnerability. Is that why you rejected me? The question came out quiet. Because you thought being tied to an omega made you weak? Yes. No hesitation, no excuses. I was so terrified of being seen as weak that I threw away the one genuine thing the universe had given me, and I've regretted it every day since. Sabrina turned her head to look at him. Really look at him. The exhaustion carved into his face, the shadows under his eyes, the way his shoulders carried weight that never seemed to ease. He looked as broken as she felt. We're a mess, she said. Yeah. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. But we're a mess together. That counts for something. Does it? I think so. Kael met her eyes. I know I haven't earned your trust yet. No, I've got years of proving myself ahead of me. But I want you to know, what you did during the battle, channeling power to save our wolves, that wasn't just impressive. It was the bravest thing I've ever seen. It was instinct. The bond demanded it. The bond demanded you try. You chose to pour everything you had into it. Chose to risk burning yourself out completely to save wolves who've barely accepted you. His voice dropped. That's not instinct. That's character. The words settled into Sabrina's chest, warm, unexpected, true in a way that made her throat tight. Thank you, she whispered. Kael nodded once. They sat in silence until exhaustion finally pulled Sabrina under, despite the bond's constant hum. She dreamed of fire and wolves and blood on stone, and woke 6 hours later feeling marginally human again. Cham. The memorial was held at sunset. The entire pack gathered in the ceremony ground, the same place where Sabrina had been rejected, then bound, then nearly killed defending. The same stone circle that had witnessed every major turning point in her life over the past 2 months. Coming back should have felt familiar. It felt haunted. 14 pyres had been built in a semicircle at the edge of the clearing. Traditional wolf funerals, bodies returned to flame and ash, spirits freed to run forever. Sabrina stood beside Kael at the center of the circle, feeling the pack's grief through the bond like a physical weight. Elder Marcus stepped forward. "We gather to honor those who fell defending our territory," his voice carried across the silent crowd. 14 wolves who gave their lives so others could live, who stood against enemies and never wavered. He began naming them. Each name was a knife in Sabrina's chest, because she'd felt them die, felt their last moments, felt the exact second their connection to the bond severed and left empty spaces she'd carry forever. "We commit their bodies to flame," Marcus continued, "and their spirits to the eternal hunt. May they run forever in fields where no enemy can follow." Kael stepped forward with a torch, touched it to the first pyre. Fire caught, spreading quickly through oil-soaked wood. He moved to the second pyre, the third, moving down the line until all 14 were burning. Then he returned to stand beside Sabrina. The pack watched in silence as flames consumed the fallen. Sabrina felt their grief, their anger, their need for someone to blame. Some of that blame was directed at her. She could feel it through the bond. Wolves who thought if Kael had chosen a stronger queen, one who'd been trained for battle, maybe fewer would have died. It hurt, but she understood it. When the last pyre collapsed into embers, Marcus spoke again. "Does anyone wish to speak?" Silence. Then a young she-wolf stepped forward, one Sabrina recognized, the sister of a wolf who died in the first wave of Garrett's attack. "My brother died protecting the queen," she said, voice shaking. "Died so she could keep channeling power to the rest of us. And She stopped, swallowed hard. "I hated her for it at first. Thought if she'd been stronger, if she'd been better, he wouldn't have had to sacrifice himself." Sabrina's chest tightened. "But then I realized something," the she-wolf continued. "She was standing in the middle of the battle doing something I couldn't even imagine. Channeling power to hundreds of wolves while feeling every injury, every death. And she didn't break, didn't run, didn't stop until the battle was won and every wounded wolf had been healed." She met Sabrina's eyes. "My brother died protecting someone worth protecting, and I'm grateful he got that chance." She bowed once and stepped back into the crowd. Others came forward after that, some to speak about the fallen, others to thank their queen for saving their lives. A few to voice anger at Garrett, at the Western Pack, at the enemies who kept testing them. Sabrina listened to all of it, felt all of it through the bond. And when the last wolf had spoken and the fires had burned to ash, she stepped forward. The crowd went silent. "I know some of you blame me for what happened," Sabrina said. Her voice carried across the ceremony ground. Clear. Steady. "I know you think if Kael had chosen a different queen, someone stronger, better trained, more worthy, that maybe your pack members would still be alive." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "And maybe you're right," she continued. "Maybe a different queen would have handled the battle better, made different choices, saved more lives." She paused. "But I'm the queen you have, the one the bond chose, the one standing here now, and I swear to you, on the ashes of the fallen, on the power burning in my chest, on everything I am, I will spend every day for the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the wolves who died protecting me." The bond pulsed with the weight of her vow, binding her to the promise in ways normal words never could. "I can't bring them back," Sabrina said quietly. "Can't undo what happened. But I can honor their sacrifice by becoming the queen they deserved, by protecting this pack with everything I have, by never forgetting what their deaths cost." She felt the pack's emotions shift through the bond. Not acceptance, not yet, but something close, a willingness to give her a chance, to see if she could actually become what she was promising. Kael's hand found hers, squeezed once. "Together," the gesture said. Sabrina squeezed back. "Together." The memorial dispersed slowly, wolves filtering away to grieve in private or return to their duties, leaving Sabrina and Kael standing in the center of the stone circle, surrounded by cooling ash. "You did good," Kael said quietly. "I told the truth." Sabrina stared at the remains of the pyres. That's all I know how to do anymore. Lie and manipulation. That's your specialty. I just have honesty. The barb landed. Kael flinched. I deserve that. You deserve worse. She turned to face him. But I'm too tired to keep punishing you for mistakes you've already apologized for. So here's the deal. You get one more chance. One. If you lie to me again, if you manipulate me, if you put politics over partnership, we're done. Bond or no bond. I'll figure out how to survive without you. I understand. Do you? Sabrina stepped closer. Because I'm not bluffing, Kael. I survived 2 months alone in the wilderness. Discovered power that shouldn't exist. Became something I don't fully understand. And I will walk away from this bond if you give me reason to, even if it kills us both. I know. His voice was quiet, sincere. And I'm not going to give you reason to. I swear it. Words are easy. Actions matter. Then watch my actions. Kael met her eyes. Every day. Every decision. Every moment. And if I slip, if I start falling back into old patterns, call me on it. I'll listen. You better. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Kael said, There's something I need to tell you about the fire, the power you showed during the battle. Sabrina's stomach dropped. What about it? I've been researching, talking to the elders, going through old records. He paused. That power, it's not random. It's bloodline magic. Bloodline magic doesn't exist anymore. It died out generations ago. That's what we were taught. But the records tell a different story. Kael's expression was grave. There was a line of wolves, ancient, powerful, who could channel pure energy, who could heal and destroy with equal ease, who were so strong they were hunted to extinction because other alphas feared them. And you think I'm descended from them? I think you are them. His voice was quiet. The last of a bloodline that was supposed to be extinct. And the blood right didn't just bind you to the pack, it woke up power that had been sleeping in your DNA waiting for the right trigger. Sabrina felt cold despite the lingering heat from the pyres. Why didn't you tell me this before the ceremony? Because I didn't know. I suspected, but I wasn't sure until I saw you channel power to hundreds of wolves simultaneously without dying from the strain. Kael's hand came up, almost touching her face, but stopping just short. You're not just an Omega who got lucky, Sabrina. You're the descendant of the most powerful wolf line in history. And that changes everything. Changes what? Who you are. What you're capable of. Why the bond manifested between us in the first place. His eyes were intense. The moon doesn't choose randomly. It chose you because you were always meant to be queen. Always meant to have this power. I was just too blind to see it. The revelation should have felt empowering. It felt like another burden. Another expectation she'd have to meet. So what now? Sabrina asked. I'm supposed to what? Embrace this bloodline? Learn to use power I don't understand? Become something even more terrifying than I already am? You learn to control it. Kael's voice was steady. We figure out what you can do, what the limits are, how to use it without burning yourself out. Together. There was that word again. Together. Like it was supposed to fix everything. I need time, Sabrina said, to process all this, to figure out who I am now that everything's changed. Take all the time you need. Kael stepped back, giving her space. I'll be here when you're ready. Sabrina spent the next week learning what it meant to be Alpha Queen. The days blurred together, councils and decisions and wolves coming to her with problems that ranged from territorial disputes to family conflicts to questions about power she didn't have answers for yet. She made mistakes. Lots of them. But she also made progress. Learned how to shield better, how to channel power more efficiently, how to carry the pack's emotional weight without drowning. Kael kept his promise about partnership. Every major decision he brought to her first, asked her opinion, actually listened when she disagreed, adjusted plans based on her input. It was strange, being treated like an equal instead of a subordinate, being valued for her perspective instead of just her power. Slowly, carefully, Sabrina started to trust him again. Not completely, not yet, but enough. One evening, a week after the memorial, she found him in his study, surrounded by maps and reports. Working late? She asked from the doorway. Kael looked up. surprise crossing his face. Couldn't sleep. Figured I'd get ahead on tomorrow's agenda. Mind if I join you? Never. Sabrina settled into the chair across from his desk, curling her legs under her. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Kael said, "Can I ask you something?" "Depends on the question." "Do you regret it?" "Completing the bond. Becoming queen." Sabrina considered the question, really considered it. A week ago, she would have said yes without hesitation, would have listed all the ways the blood right had destroyed her peace, stolen her freedom, tied her to responsibilities she'd never wanted. But now, "Ask me again in a year," she said finally. "Right now, I'm still figuring out how to survive it. Whether I regret it, that's a question for future me." "Fair enough." Kael's smile was tired. "For what it's worth, I don't regret it, even knowing what it costs you, even knowing you might never fully forgive me for how we got here." "Why not?" "Because you make me better." His voice was quiet, honest. "You challenge me, call me on my shit, force me to be the alpha this kingdom actually needs instead of the one my father trained me to be. Your father sounds like an asshole." He was. Kael's expression turned bleak. Powerful, respected, completely devoid of compassion. He ruled through fear and strength and never showed weakness. And I spent years trying to be exactly like him because I thought that's what leadership meant. And now? Now I'm trying to be different, to lead with strength, but also compassion, to value wolves for more than just what they can do for me. He met her eyes. "You showed me that's possible, just by existing, by being strong in ways he never valued." The word settled into Sabrina's chest, warm, true, dangerous in how much they made her want to believe him. "We should get some sleep," she said, standing. "Yeah." Kael stood too. "Sabrina?" "Yeah? Thank you. For giving me another chance. For not giving up on this, even when you had every reason to." Sabrina studied him for a long moment, saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the hope, the genuine desire to be better. "Don't make me regret it," she said softly. "I won't." 3 months passed. 3 months of Sabrina settling into her role as Alpha Queen, learning the intricacies of pack politics, training her power, building relationships with wolves who'd started to see her as more than just the Omega who'd gotten lucky. The bond with Kael deepened. Not love, not yet, but partnership. Real partnership. The kind built on trust earned through action instead of demanded through authority. They fought sometimes, disagreed on strategies and decisions and how to handle difficult situations, but they worked through it, together. The word had started to feel less like a chain and more like a choice. One evening, Sabrina found herself standing at the edge of the territory where she'd first entered the wilderness 3 months ago. The forest looked different now, less menacing, more like home. "Thought I'd find you here," Kael's voice came from behind her. She didn't turn. Needed some air, some space from the bond. It gets overwhelming sometimes. He moved to stand beside her. "Even after years, there are days I want to run somewhere the pack can't reach me." "Did you ever?" "Once, right after my father died and I became Alpha King. I made it 3 days before the guilt brought me back." He paused. "You?" "I think about it sometimes," Sabrina admitted. "Wonder what would have happened if I just kept running that first night, if I'd never come back." "You'd be free. I'd be alone." She finally looked at him. "There's a difference." Kael's expression was unreadable in the fading light. "You once asked me for one honest reason you should stay that had nothing to do with politics or survival," he said quietly. "I remember. I couldn't give you one then, but I can now." He turned to face her fully. "Stay because I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Sabrina's breath caught. "You what?" "I love you." Kael's voice was steady. "Not the queen, not the power. You, the woman who survived impossible odds, who channels fire like it's breathing, who calls me on my bullshit and makes me want to be better. I love you, Sabrina, and I should have said it months ago." Sabrina stared at him. Her heart was hammering so hard she could barely hear over it. "That's not fair," she whispered. "I know. You don't get to say that and expect—" "I don't expect anything." Kael's hand came up, cupping her face with heartbreaking gentleness. I'm just telling you the truth. Finally. Completely. With no manipulation or politics or ulterior motives. I love you, and whether you love me back or not, whether you ever forgive me or not, that's not going to change. Sabrina felt tears prick at her eyes. She'd spent 3 months building walls, protecting herself, refusing to let him all the way in because trust was a thing that had to be earned and love was a luxury she couldn't afford. But standing here now, feeling his sincerity through the bond, seeing the truth written across his face, the walls crumbled. I don't know if I love you, she said honestly. I don't know if what I feel is love, or just the bond, or trauma, or some combination of all three. That's okay. But I want to find out. The admission came out rough. I want to see if we can build something real, not just partnership, not just survival, something that actually matters. Kael's smile was soft, genuine. Then we'll figure it out. Together. Together, Sabrina agreed. And when he kissed her, it felt different than before. Not desperate, not necessary. Just true. They stood at the edge of the wilderness as night fell, two broken wolves learning how to be whole, and Sabrina felt something in her chest that might have been hope, or maybe it was just the fire. Either way, it was hers. And for the first time since the rejection, since the blood right, since becoming something she'd never expected, Sabrina Valeth, Alpha Queen of the Northern Territories, felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not because fate demanded it, not because duty required it, but because she'd chosen it. And that choice, fought for, earned through blood and pain and impossible sacrifice, was hers to keep. Forever.